That was weird, Pinky. As you rubbed your beard, I heard the
I was
bristles in the microphone.
Oh, no kidding. It's picking
I was
that
about
up.
to
Yeah,
make a comment about that too. Like you could
yeah,
hear the bristle rub for sure.
Wow. This
yeah.
thing's way too sensitive.
No, it's perfect sensitive. That
Perfect.
ASMR bristle rub.
Yeah. So it's my new YouTube venture. I didn't tell you guys about it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
just
right.
get on there, rub my beard.
What kind of market is that? What's your
It's
average
a
attendee?
it's a specific market with specific tastes. Yeah, yeah. Here, there's good money in it though. So
Well, cool. Everybody, welcome aboard. We'll get rolling here in a few minutes. While we wait, it's almost Christmas. You guys excited for Christmas?
I am excited for Christmas. Yeah, yeah. So
I am for sure. I'm entirely unprepared for it though. Like I am way behind this year.
yeah, yeah. I'll agree with that 100%. Yeah, I was just in the house talking to my wife. It's like, yeah, we've not got anything ordered. Like we're gonna have to do this
Yeah.
now.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's the 8th. And I
Yeah.
haven't, I mean, like, my wife and I still haven't purchased like a single gift for anyone. I mean, like maybe one or two. I mean, we got a lot to do. So
I
2
did put
weeks
some
from
lights
Monday,
though.
so yeah, it's
So,
pretty nice.
yeah. They look way better in person. I'm really disappointed with them on camera. They are beautiful. They're like those nice ceramic, old school, like, Clark W. Griswold type lights. You know what I mean? And I love them, but I don't plug them up very much because, like, as soon as we end this, I'm probably going to shut them off because they get so hot that I'm afraid I'm going to burn this place down.
Have little scorch marks on the wood back there.
Yeah, probably. It'll be all right, though. Be all right.
I'm actually the opposite of you guys. I'm way ahead of schedule this year.
Oh,
We
yeah?
have pretty much all of our shopping done at this point. Got a couple little things to get, but almost there. So that feels good. But
Well,
my
this guy.
question though is like, it's the time for Christmas treats, Christmas eats.
I
What's
was
your
gonna say we're not
favorite?
gonna talk about food of some kind. We always talk
Yeah,
about
we got to.
Yeah.
You
candy,
got to talk about
treats,
food.
like food. Yeah.
What's your favorite Christmas treat?
Oh, man.
I
Favorite's hard.
don't know that I have. What I will say is that places like to pop out the peppermint options, like limited flavor options for like shakes and coffees and things like that. Which I'm not a big. I don't
No,
get a
no,
lot
I
of
don't dig
shakes
it.
or flavored coffees and stuff like that, but I do love peppermint. So during the Christmas season, I will partake in some of those. I do like that.
I enjoy peppermint. I don't like it in everything. Like I'm not a big like
Well, I don't want it on
peppermint
my
coffee.
pizza. I mean, I don't
Well,
like it in
sure, yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah. I don't really dig it in coffee or anything like that though. Like I don't. I like peppermint candy, and that's about it. Like candy canes, or I like those soft ones, the little soft peppermints. Those are delicious. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking
Like
about.
I don't know,
I
are they like the
don't.
buttermints kind of?
They're like I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what a buttermint is now that I'm thinking about it, but it's like they're usually individually wrapped, or you can get like a log, right?
That
But
looks like
it's
a little pillow kind of.
yeah, kind of like a little pillow. Yeah,
Yeah.
they just melt. They kind of melt
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
mouth.
I think
Yeah.
that's a buttermint, like a peppermint
Mm,
buttermint, I think.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
My
do.
favorite treat though is like the butter cookies, just with the,
Yeah.
fun sugar on it, like the red and the green sugar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, those are cool too. I do like the butter cookies. I just like mint though. There's a lot of mint stuff. I like candy canes, man. Like I just
Yeah.
like rocking the mint throughout the Christmas.
hmm
Plum cream cheese Danish. That sounds
oh my,
amazing.
it does. Yeah.
Is that a Christmas special or is that just a general Starbucks thing, Rob?
Yeah, I want to go there and get that. I didn't
Yeah,
know this.
that sounds
Seasonal.
seasonal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't a favorite, and you guys know about this one, but it is one I always enjoy around the Christmas time, and that is Drunkaroos. I know I've told you guys about the Drunkaroos in the past.
Yeah, I've heard.
Oh no,
I don't know that I have.
really? Okay, all right. So you get
You get
Dunkaroos.
drunk and then
You get
what?
drunk.
You
Yeah,
get
and
drunk.
you make Drunkaroos.
No, it's Dunkaroos cereal, not the like Dunkaroos with the icing or whatever, but Dunkaroos
I don't even know
cereal.
what Dunkaroos is. I've never.
Oh,
I'm
you got
googling
kids.
it right now.
You got
Don't
kids
worry.
too.
I'm duck
Yeah.
going it right now.
So you dump
Uh,
those in a bowl though, and then you put Bailey's on top of it. Like, the good old
okay.
Bailey's cream liquor, right? So those are Drunkaroos. Make them every year. Wouldn't recommend you have a whole lot of them, but they are very
Yeah.
tasty. Yeah. Um, but I guess for like favorite, I mean, I know there's like a fancy word for this, like a charcuterie board or something like that, but basically we just go buy a whole bunch of fancy cheeses and smoked sausages and that kind of thing. And we do that every Christmas. Just a family thing. Everybody eats a whole bunch of cheese and meat and Love it.
Sounds
Favorite
good,
treat.
Charlie Day. Been in the
Yeah,
news
no,
lately.
yeah, with the milk steak and
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
pot milk.
Gonna have some
Corey,
cat food with that? What's up?
Corey called out the smoked weenies. I also do love smoked weenies around Christmas. It's so weird, right? They're in the store all year. I don't buy them all year, but Christmas time, yeah, I'm gonna buy a pack of those, put some barbecue sauce on them, and slow cook them.
Yeah, you ever? I think
Right.
it's I had somebody do some grape jelly one time. Like it was like barbecue sauce and grape jelly or something. Man, they were delicious.
Yeah,
But same kind of thing. Yeah, the little smokies.
Like mixed,
Yeah.
buddy, that's good.
like dipping it in grape jelly, or like using it to like as a overall thing to
It's just in there, right? It's in the crock
marinate
pot
it.
with the marinated.
Yeah, because I've used I've known people who, well, not grape jelly, but like grape soda. I mean, it's
Mm.
a common thing I've heard of being used in grape soda or root beer or Dr. Pepper, being used in like meatballs or meats that are in
Yeah.
a crock pot and stuff.
Mhm.
It's good.
And it's none of your business, Rob, if that's moonshine or not. It's not.
It definitely isn't. Yeah. How do you guys feel about eggnog? I'm just curious on that topic.
Every year I
It's like-
think I'm gonna like it, and then I get it, and then I don't like it.
Everybody
Yeah,
hates it or
every
loves
year.
it, it seems like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. Like I want to like eggnog, but I don't really love it. I'll have a glass every year, kind of like Pinky,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's enough. I don't need any more.
I feel like I want, like, if I get a craving for like eggnog sounds good, I want like a shot of it. You know what I mean? Like I just want maybe a double shot, but that's it. Like I don't want too much. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm amused. I just got a Teams message from one of our internal folks saying that they missed the Drunkaroos recipe and would like it. So,
It's
so apparently it's gonna be a
Baileys
hit.
and Dunkaroos.
Yeah, it's not a
very
big
easy
recipe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk to marketing and just see if we can get that up on the blog for everyone.
FRSecure seasonal drink.
Yeah.
So Charles did call out homemade boozy eggnog. He likes that. Evan
Yeah.
Williams makes a pre-boozy eggnog too, if anyone's
Mhm.
interested. Yeah. And I should be clear, when I say I have eggnog every year, it's only boozy eggnog. It's like, does it come any other way? I don't know.
It does. You can get it
Yeah.
without booze, and
Well, we get it without
But-
booze so the kids can have it without booze.
Right,
man. Like,
right.
and then
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not for adults though, right?
I mean,
it
neither
with
neither are
additives.
Dunkaroos. You can make it an adult beverage if you want.
All right, let's
All
roll,
right.
dudes. Yeah, welcome everybody to another episode of the Hackle Box, and it is Christmas season. I think it's breach season still. We had a little breach giving last month. The month before, Pinky gave us our spooky Halloween IR stories, which is great. So let's talk the holidays a little bit. I know we bring this up every year. We've already mentioned in last month's podcast and episode, but we see social engineering attacks go through the roof this time of the year. And so I thought it might be fun to just kind of talk about some things maybe you're seeing, Pinky, Eric, insights that you have from a red team perspective, and some of the influence and persuasion techniques that might be used this time of the year, and just help our listeners be educated and ready for those attacks as they hit their mailboxes or phones or whatever.
Yeah. You want me to start?
Yeah,
Well,
fire away, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
Whoever.
start with, I'll just say that, I think when you're looking at social engineering, at least as an attacker, and there's, going to be a lot of different methodologies and kind of, opinions on that. But I think you're always looking for something that is believable, right? You're looking for whatever kind of event, a shared type of thing that's going to be shared by a lot of people. That could be something that, that they're going to understand and actually think there might be something to it, right? And sometimes throughout the year that can be a little tough. I mean, whenever you find a new thing, when COVID happened, as much as that's a terrible thing, when it first started happening, there was a lot of companies doing things about like, hey, we have new remote work policies and all this stuff, right? So like, easy, take advantage of that. Hey, look at our new remote work policy. We need you to click on this link and go sign this thing, giving us an e-signature or something like that. You take advantage of shared experience, right? And things that people are that like expect to see coming. Well, holidays are great for that, yeah, not everybody celebrates Christmas, but there are several, holidays going on around this time. And even if they're not people who celebrate those types of things, they're aware of it and they're used to that kind of thing coming in.
Mhm.
Also, it's a good time for stuff that might be coming for the new year, right? So you could talk about like, hey, going into 2024, we've got this new policy update. So even that helps, even if it's not a holiday specific. And so whenever you have those types of times a year, that you can make a story more believable, right? And incentivize people in some way to look at something, it's always going to be a useful situation, I'd say, for the attacker at least.
Yeah, definitely. And just from our experience, right? So I would say in the last probably even 2 years, almost every phishing attack that we've seen is some type of DocuSign document or, an Adobe signed document, something like that has kind of that flavor that Eric's talking about. And kind of like he's mentioned, it's the end of the year. Also at work, you've got a lot of things going on, like benefits enrollment and, like you said, new policies and just different things like that. So we see a ton of that stuff around this time of year. But the other one that I think gets folks a lot of times, um, without being kind of in that realm, is shipping notifications, right? So fake shipping notifications. Hey, you've got a UPS package that's out for delivery. You need to sign in here because they can't deliver it, or whatever, that kind of thing. And that starts kicking up really around Thanksgiving, that kind of thing, when people start shopping and ordering things and that kind of thing. So we always see an influx of that every year. We're seeing a lot right now. I know we're kind of talking about social engineering right now, so I'll save some of that till later. But yeah, most of the attacks that we see are around that sort of premise that Eric was talking about there, and we're seeing a lot of them. I mean, it's kind of been a bombardment here in the last 2 months. I mean, I actually know right now. I just saw some messages. I mean, our guys are getting hit with, I think they've all kinds of triage calls right now, actively while we're on here having fun. But it's definitely the season for that. So be aware of those types of things as well. And we can get into a little bit more in depth of how those attacks look too, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to.
Yeah.
Go. Okay.
One that I've seen recently too, I'm sure you guys have seen this before. It isn't new, but I had actually a family member who was a victim to this, but it was a fake receipt, right? So she got an email of a receipt saying, hey, $435 has been deducted from your bank account for this service. And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, right? But this one actually involved phishing as well. And so it's like, if you receive this in error, call us so we can get it sorted, right? And so they called, she did call, but luckily after she made the phone call, she realized like, oh crap, I'm, the victim of an attack here. And she ended the call, called me, and we kind of worked through what she should do to make sure her device is secure and her accounts are secure. But the goal of that call is to say, hey, let me get your bank account routing information, your account number, so we can make sure we get this money back in your account when they're actually going to deduct funds from her account. So that's one that, I mean, it happens every year, and it's a great time to kick those up because lots of people we're talking about are spending, other family members, you maybe have a shared bank account or purchasing Christmas gifts, and you see something that you didn't buy. And so the natural reaction is going to be, I have to fix this right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially this time of year, right? I mean, you've got so much going on, and you're probably spending more money than you want to spend, so you want to get that back. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say for people out there, like also just if you're, within an organization, what kind of stuff are you sending out team wide this time of year? And know that those are probably similar things that people are doing, and a lot of people know about it, and that those types of things might be phishing targets, So it's just a general kind of rule of thumb is to think about what types of mass emails you would be sending, and realize that those might be attacks. I know one of the ones we see too, and I'm not on the IR team, so I shouldn't say I see it from that side, like the breach side, but I see it as a common thing that gets talked about, and it's something that people use at this time of the year is like, hey, we just want to thank you for your contributions this year. We're going to send out gift cards to everybody. Claim your gift card here. So that's a big one. Like, celebrate the holidays, help you out during this time, whatever it might be, right? Yeah,
definitely. And like Oscar mentioned too, it's not always emails. I mean, we tend to focus on the email just because it's still definitely the biggest vector. A lot of text messages and stuff like that too. Same type of stuff, right? Like the receipt, or hey, we charged 400 to your account. Call us if this is an error. That kind of thing. Like tons of that. What we're seeing too, at least as far as email phishing attacks, is a ton of token theft attacks, right? So as a sort of credit to the security world, right, we've done a pretty good job getting everybody on multi-factor authentication, things like that. And so now, of course, the attackers have to find ways around that. And so most of the email breaches we've worked over the last year plus have involved some version of that, right? And we talked about it at some point in time with evil proxy, and it's essentially proxying a connection over to a legitimate login for like O365 or Gmail or something like that. But then they capture that token after you've input your MFA code or whatever you're doing, and then use that to log in later, right? So we see a ton of that right now. So don't just rely on, hey, we have MFA, so we're good. We're seeing a ton of that. And, honestly, when the push for MFA really started getting going a couple of years ago, we did see a fall off in email compromise cases. Like, we just weren't getting as many of them for a while. And now they've ticked back up because, the attackers have figured out other ways. There's a lot of services that offer that for the attackers and that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. Even if you log into the O365 and you see your email, you still may have gotten hit, through one of those proxy style attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a really good article that the Hacker News put out yesterday, actually. It's called Hacking the Human Mind, Exploiting Vulnerabilities in the First Line of Cyber Defense. And I would urge everybody to check it out, give it a read. What I particularly like about that article is that it goes into the tactics used for like cognitive influence, emotional triggers, and the exploitation techniques and kind of examples of those exploitation techniques for, reciprocation, for authority, scarcity, social proof, commitment, consistency, and so on. And it's just a good way to really understand our own psychology and understand how that attackers also understand the psychology of us, and that can be used to weaponize attacks against human victims.
Yeah.
So another thing too, like while we're talking about this, since it is the season, is I think we see some people fail to properly respond when these phishing emails target an organization, or one user falls victim to clicking a link or opening a malicious attachment or whatever. A lot of times, people focus that response to only that individual. We should always assume if one individual received that email, likely other individuals in your organization did too. And so we always recommend folks make sure that you're scanning your mailboxes to determine who received that email in your organization. You can typically check to see if that email has been read or if it hasn't been read yet. If it has been read, great, go ahead and purge those from everyone's mailbox. But any user who has read that email, you should be investigating that account and having a conversation with that user to determine if they did interact with the attachment or the link, and then going through a proper threat hunt to make sure that that user wasn't compromised as well. And then the other thing I see too is sometimes people just assume that these are always only for credential harvesting or token session harvesting, but there are still weaponized emails with malicious attachments that may have a secondary payload as well. So don't assume it's only utilized for credential harvesting. It could also be used to implant malicious software on the device.
Yeah, those are really good points. And on the first one there about other users being targeted. So one of the things that always scares me when we have somebody call in, we had one user compromised, whatever, we cleaned it up, we did everything and everything looks good, right? Is if they didn't do that search that I was just talking about to find out who everybody got, or who all got the email and who may have clicked it and that kind of thing. Sometimes the attackers won't use those credentials immediately. And so even though you're looking through there, you're like, well, I don't see any other logins from Russia or whatever anywhere else in my tenant, you're still going to have to be really careful about that for the next little bit, because often they'll compromise 4 or 5 users and really only use one set of credentials initially. And so they may find out, okay, you cleaned that one up, now let me switch to another one. And so keep that in mind. Like, anytime you've had that happen, you're going to want to be on alert for a while. You don't want to just assume it's all good and move on from there. So definitely something to keep in mind. We've been in the middle of working attacks before and have one where we shut down a compromised account, and then we see another one pop up like 2 days later or something like that. And so just keep that in mind. They may have gotten more people than you realize, and respond accordingly.
Yeah, I think another good point to mention there, just specifically because you called out like the login from Russia too, is historically we would always see like attacker, and I don't know why this kind of blew our minds, right? When attackers would compromise an account, they would be logging in from a location that was obvious. This wasn't the compromise. This wasn't the user. This is a compromised user. But we are seeing a shift in that now too, where attackers are being a little more mindful about where they're initiating those logins from, and they will try to attempt to VPN through a device that's in a similar location to where they think your end user base is likely going to reside, to lower that likelihood of discovery through impossible travel like alerts.
Yeah, I was just
Definitely
about to
a good
say,
call out. Yeah.
I was just about to kind of hit on that. Was going to say that as an attacker, I mean, we definitely, I wouldn't say none of my people have ever done this, but I mean, like generally it's a common thing to, when you get multiple accounts, whether it's through phishing or some other method, to only use kind of one and see if it gets burned in the first place. And then it's not uncommon to look around, start to shop around for what kind of proxy I might be able to use to kind of log in from a location that is in state for that organization, or at least in a neighboring state or something like that, so it doesn't look too suspicious, and take advantage of the rest of the accounts that way later on, really. So
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Any other tips for our audience before we move on? If you're not expecting it, don't click it. Don't open it.
Yeah.
I mean, and even like there are things, I'll say this, like I got an email with an attachment that was from one of our owners last week, and I didn't expect this at all. I verified it's from him, and I'm like, I'm still not opening this. So I'm gonna send him a text first. Did you send me this? And I didn't hear back. So actually what I did is I pulled down the file, threw it in my sandbox and inspected there. And I'm like, okay, this is legit. And then I proceeded. So err on the side of caution.
I think I've said this before, like a year or something ago on a Hackle Box, but I'll just say, like, don't be afraid to be difficult, right? Like like it's one of the things that's outlined in this article and outlined in a lot of things that talk about social engineering and stuff, is that humans want to be easygoing. They want to adapt to the situation. They don't want to be the pain problem. They don't want to be the point of contestation. And so it's okay. Like, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to be that person. If you get a call from your bank about fraud or something like that, potentially, don't be afraid to just be like, can I get your name? I'll call back the bank and ask for you and get routed back to you. It is a pain in the butt a little bit. It's a pain for you. It's a pain for them. It makes you seem like you're difficult, but it also keep you safe. I know I'm that guy. I do it all the time. I mean, it causes problems occasionally, but it makes me safer in the end. And at the end of the day, I still get whatever it is done that needs to get done. It doesn't block it. It just makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's worth it in the end.
Got a good comment in chat here too. Is something I was thinking about as you guys were talking. So very timely, is saying that one thing company officers do to support cybersecurity is promote a culture where it's okay to request or question a request, right? And that's absolutely. And then on top of that too, it's totally okay to, like, you want to create that culture where it's okay to report that, oh, I accidentally clicked this, right? You want your users to report when this happens, because if it's, a week goes by or 2 weeks before you find out that it's actually compromised because, well, the attacker got everything they wanted, now they're just blasting out emails trying to compromise other people, you're going to be in a much worse shape, right? I mean, do you have things in your email inbox that an attacker shouldn't see? Probably. Do you have access to something else using those same credentials that they shouldn't see? Probably. And so you can really limit that sort of breach situation where actual real information is being stolen that could be damaging to your company, by just getting somebody to report, hey, I'm sorry, I clicked on a thing, I put my credentials in, I don't think it's legit, check it out for me. So encourage that for folks.
A safe environment where they don't fear retribution or even shaming from that, understanding that everyone is going to be a victim if they haven't already been a victim in their lifetime, for sure. And I would say even extending beyond that too, and encouraging your users, even if you're not a victim, when you identify those phishing emails that have hit your inbox, you should still report that. Even if hey, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm going to delete this, but other people in your organization have received that. So over report and overshare. I'm sure everyone that's working for your security team on the back end is going to be grateful that you did.
I think if you're an organization who does a lot of phishing, or does any amount of like phishing testing and stuff like that, social engineering testing throughout the year for your organization, it does matter how you handle those situations. You're gonna have people who click the links. You're gonna get a report at the end of your engagement that says who did click it or not. And if you see a report that says these people clicked it, and you're looking, you're like, well, they didn't report it, don't go offensive. Don't be mad at them, essentially, right? Like, instead look at it like, hey, this is an area we need to improve. We need to get the trust here that people want to report these things to us, or they at least the understanding that they should be. And instead of kind of going at it and like, this is what you messed up on, just be like, this is what we want, and then you praise the people who did, right? And
the understanding is this is not a shaming exercise, and this is an exercise that is to be utilized for education and knowledge development for our user base.
Yeah, it's from Anonymous in our Q&A about why not let incoming calls go to voicemail, and then you can decide from there if you want to call them back or how to address it, call them back. This is actually something I tend to do. I very rarely answer my phone when it rings unless I know who's calling me, right? I just kind of let it go. And if they leave a voicemail, cool, I'll check it out. If they don't, I assume it's probably a garbage call or something like that. But yeah, like the person notes here, it's, this helps avoid the potential pressure of social engineering in real time, because sometimes that's, and I know that kind of gets covered in this article as well, but things are busy, right? You've got, kids are running around or whatever. You get a phone call and somebody's asking you for things, saying they're your bank. It's real easy just to be distracted and say something. So I like that approach.
Yeah, the one note I'll add to that, and I definitely do the same thing. If I don't expect that call, it goes to voicemail, and I screen it there. But also when you're doing that, you don't. If they are like, "Hey, this is blah blah with whatever bank, and you can contact me back at this number," don't contact back at that number. Go look up the number yourself. Contact the main whatever. You might have to sit on hold longer. You might have to route through a little bit more, but you can be more sure that this is legitimate.
Yeah, those are really good tips, guys. Cool. So I'm going to move on to another topic here. Holy moly, Atlassian, pour it on. It's been a rough year, a rough end of the year for these dudes. 4 more, I think they were all crits. Yeah, all critical vulnerabilities recently released, affecting Confluence, Jira, a whole gang of platforms that are managed by Atlassian. And these are bad too. They're all RCEs, I believe. So 4 different RCEs. Again, I don't even know what the total count is for Atlassian products at this point, but I know it's high. And it seems like month after month, this continues to happen.
I think it's at least 8 in the last 2 months or so, and all gnarly vulnerabilities. So yeah. Is this one? I didn't actually. I assume this is still for the on-prem. I was kind of trying to find that in the article.
It is. Yeah, it's still on-prem. Yeah. I think just like last time, we should expect mass exploitation. I haven't seen if POCs are available or have been released for these 4 specifically yet, although we can expect that we will follow a similar path and timeline that we saw in the last batch of vulnerabilities affecting these products.
To update on the last batch too, because I think we did talk about it on here, and if not, I know we put some articles out on it. The initial ones last month, I believe it was, they were doing a lot of drive-by ransomware, and so you were seeing servers get ransomed really quickly. Everybody kind of thought that was what the attack was going to be, not patting ourselves on the back or whatever. We know that that's not all that it's going to be, right? They're going to leave behind persistence and things like that, and they did. So those ones from a month ago, even if you patched, right, you need to go and threat hunt your servers, make sure everything looks okay. Because they did often leave, beacons and things like that behind to come back and hit you again later, even if you didn't get initially ransomed. Honestly, if you got initially ransomed, there's probably less likelihood that happened, but it's definitely not zero, because of the way that those ransom attacks worked. They were really just ransoming whatever the Confluence sort of service account had access to, and could have very easily left behind something to come back and hit you again later. So I expect the same thing with this round of bugs too.
Yeah, I'll just point out to kind of just an overall statement, general statement, not necessarily related to Confluence here, but seen in Confluence here, is that when you have some of these large bugs that have been maybe going unnoticed, and then they get a bunch of attention and mass attention in media to some extent, and all that, you're going to see more eyes on that product now, more interest, more reverse engineering. A lot of people, when a big CVE big critical or something like that comes out and a patch comes out for it, they'll diff the patch and try to see what was changed within the application to then reverse engineer what the vuln was in the first place. So even if there wasn't active exploitation before, they're going to start diffing and reversing that and understanding what it was. But in that process, people have more eyes. You have a ton of different researchers, a ton of different, malicious actors and stuff like that who are doing the same thing, and they're going to start spotting other problems. I mean, that just comes with it. And I don't know if other people have seen that trend, and it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get 1 or 2 crits or something like that, and then it just moves on and there's nothing. But we do see this a decent amount where it's like, Exchange had a problem and has another problem, then has another problem, and then has another problem. Print services have a problem, and then another problem, and then another problem, right? Confluence has it. It's like we see this kind of thing happening, and it's because eyes get on it, and that's good. I mean, that means we're finding all this stuff now, right? And that's a good thing. But at the same time, I think it's important to note that too, when you see something that you use that gets a major vulnerability found like this, know that more eyes are going to be on it, and that's going to be an area you're going to have to keep eyes on too for a bit. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like you patch this and you're done. Even if you threat hunt on for that one, you're going to want to keep eyes on that software or the application or whatever it is to and the news about it to make sure that you're kind of staying up as more and more people investigate that thing.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I know this, we've seen this in the past. I don't have a good example right now, but where it is, you'll see this critical vulnerability that's released, and then suddenly like a product is widely known, like, oh, there's X number of these devices. So it becomes public knowledge. Like, not only is there this critical vulnerability, there's an access point of exploitation there, but holy crap, there's a wide net. And then it's very sequential where it's like within a time frame of a quarter or so, we typically see multiple other CVEs released for that same product. And even it's kind of a pattern too, right? Where they'll patch, kind of like you mentioned, and they'll find a flaw in that patch and be able to find a new path of exploitation for that previous vulnerability. And so, yeah, it's just like attackers have increased focus on that product. They know there is a likelihood once there's already one, there's likely other. And we've talked about this before too, just because vulnerabilities haven't been discovered in specific software or applications, it doesn't mean they're not there, right? It just means they haven't been discovered yet, and they still likely contain that vulnerability. It's getting the focus, and that's what leads to this slew of vulnerabilities.
Well, I think one Eric called out there is a good example of that. Actually, was Exchange. When we saw the first like proxy logon, and then you had proxy shell and proxy not shell and proxy infinity, basically, and like and that probably came from, like Eric's saying, more people having eyes on it, looking at it. Okay, so they have a problem with handling this. Let's see if we can go further from there.
Yeah.
And we're still, just as a quick PSA, we are still seeing attacks related to those proxy shell, proxy not shell, those things. Like, those are still happening today. So please patch those, please.
Yeah, same thing for like print services, right? Print infinity at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we see, a lot of these things kind of do that. And I've always said, like, with pen testing, I like to look at when you start to like really look at an application or look at a service or whatever it is, when you're looking at a target, you start to, and if you're looking at it in detail, you start to see little things, little pieces of information that if you're keen to it and you think that way, you'll kind of build out a story of how this was developed in the first place, right? I sometimes will be working on a web application and I'll see certain ways that they're handling inputs or handling their form submissions or things like that. And you start to go, okay, this person's probably used to using a system like this. Maybe they use this type of framework. That framework is using these types of things, but then it doesn't include this. So they probably use a third party for that. And if you build out that story, you can start to think about where that's going to affect other things. And there's been multiple times in pen testing where I found, or people on my team have found, vulnerabilities, not because they were readily apparent, but because we saw some things that led us to believe that they might be doing something. And what I'm getting is kind of a long-winded way of saying, like, when you're looking at these vulns as they come up, they tell that kind of story. Like, why did this flaw exist in the first place? So the person who created this was thinking about it from this perspective, thinking that this was okay, thinking that this would handle this or something like that. And that can lead to understanding other ways that things might be handled and implemented in other areas, and get to that too. So even if you're not straight up reversing and finding that thing, you can infer some idea of other attack routes.
So learning the likely methods of coding that a programmer would have used, because you can discover these methods in another place, inferring they could likely be in use in this piece of the code as well. And so attempting to exploit kind of blindly, but you do get lucky because you learn about the thought process of that creator.
Exactly. You put yourself in their shoes. And it's not just programming, it's not just that, it's system administrators. How are they creating their different accounts for new users? How are they doing certain things? What kind of configurations are we seeing in certain places? And you can put yourself in their shoes, and especially if you've done the work before, if you've been a programmer, if you've been a sysadmin before, or you've done certain things, you can start to think like, okay, I'm seeing little shortcuts here that are not vulnerabilities, but it also makes me kind of think that maybe they would have taken a shortcut like this here, and I have no evidence of it, but I know to go look now,
Yeah.
So
that's a really interesting angle.
It's one of the things I love the most about pen testing. It's what keeps me constantly just loving this field, is that you can put yourself in someone else's mindset and try to find things based on that.
You're solving a puzzle every day.
Yeah.
I think we all love solving puzzles. That's what I talk. Everyone who works in this field, like, you have to have some love for solving a puzzle.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Let's move on to another one. And I've got an extra special surprise for everybody to end today. I just had to mention it. So we got a couple more topics to hit, and then we'll do that. There's 21 flaws were revealed for Sierra wireless routers. These Sierra wireless routers are specifically the AirLink cellular routers, which, from what I understand, they're highly used in critical sectors, healthcare, energy, emergency services, which I would assume is ambulance and police, vehicle tracking, retail, waste management, on and on. I think there's 86,000 devices across all the critical sectors in use today. And essentially, these vulnerabilities allow credential theft. You can take over a router by malicious code injection, establish persistence on the device, use that as initial access into other critical networks. One critical, 9 high risks, and the others are medium. But the main talking point I have here, if you have these routers, if you guys are using this, right, make sure you're patching what you can. However, some of the vulnerabilities are related to TinyXML, which is embedded in the Sierra device, and TinyXML is no longer supported. So now what do we do? We're waiting on Sierra to be able to identify a fix and supply a fix for that, which they've yet to do. Some of the other components used in the routers have been fixed at this point, but nothing for TinyXML. And this is, I think, Eric, you've got a lot of experience in this and dealing with clients, and you can tell us a whole gang of stories and helping people understand this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lesson to be learned in this for a lot of people. Aside from the specific issues with these devices, is that the idea of TinyXML being unsupported but being used by these devices, we run into a decent amount, and whether it be like just Vuln scanning, results, or whether it be from pen testing or whatever it might be, noticing, finding outdated libraries, software, whatever it might be, in devices, in appliances of some kind, or in just software packages. And oftentimes, I mean, I've heard this so many times from different people that you find this thing and you say, hey, this is a vulnerability, and they're like, well, that's a false positive because I keep that appliance up to date. It's on the newest firmware, or that software version is the newest software, or that operating system is the newest operating, whatever. It doesn't matter. The overall collection is at the most recent updated patch level. And so that's a false positive. So that is not like you'll report the thing as an unsupported library, an unsupported application. They're like, no, it's supported. It's within support by Red Hat, or it's in support by Cisco, or it's in support by whoever, right? And it's like, no, not necessarily, and just because it exists and it's part of that package and it's at the newest version overall doesn't mean that it doesn't have vulnerabilities in it. Sometimes people use things that have vulnerabilities even in their highest patch level, and you can't just look past them, and you can't just say that they're false positives. And in situations like this, is it a good example of that, and why you can't just be like, well, the device has got the newest firmware, so it's not vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's challenging for people too. I understand,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, if you have these Sierra devices, I don't even know, but does Sierra even list the dependencies, right, that are involved in the code base to make this device work? I don't know. And we encourage everybody, like we talk about, like Log4j, right? Remember when Log4j happened, and it wasn't widely known for a lot of people if Log4j was in their environment. Turns out it was in a lot of environments, and people had this running. They had no idea it was even there, right? So people didn't even realize they were vulnerable to this massive vulnerability. And so it's kind of the same thing here. We talked about, you got to know your dependencies. You got to be able to scan your dependencies for vulnerabilities and identify remediation paths for those as well. And there are some methods to do that, specifically in, like, application development. But what about, like, in devices that have these dependencies embedded in? It's really challenging for people to fully understand what that device operates on, how to inventory and catalog those dependencies, and make decisions even on purchasing your products based upon those dependencies. Because I know me, for one, right, if I'm in a position where I'm looking for cellular routers, it'd be very important to know what are the dependencies used in this code base, and I would do that analysis to determine if they are using deprecated dependencies, and if so, no, I'm not going to use these in my environment. But so I'm guessing it's probably challenging to even get that information from the manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they're not going to want to share that most of the time. I mean, you might can push if you're big enough, right? But I mean, most of the time you're not gonna be able to get down to like the dependency library level of things.
Right.
I can say too that having some experience with this and dealing with clients with this and talking about this, what I see is that no, most of them, I mean, the very, very, very large majority of them do not post any kind of list of their dependencies. What you will see sometimes from, let's say you got, and I'm just going to throw this is not real. Okay. I'm just throwing out names and arbitrary things here. But let's say you've got a Cisco device and it's got this outdated thing on it, right? And or maybe Cisco's not really, you have some kind of appliance, we won't name a name, some kind of appliance got an outdated thing on it, and it gets scanned. You know, they got however many hundreds of thousands of people who have purchased this device, and it gets scanned by, you know, all these different security companies or internal tools and all these different things, and it keeps flagging, and then all of these, you know, organizations reach out to that appliance or device manufacturer and say, hey, this is getting flagged as an unsupported version, or it's getting flagged as a vulnerable version, and we need you to update this. What we see in that case, when a lot of clients for these you know, device providers or application providers get messaged about these things, they respond with a page that will say, yeah, we use it, but it is supported because we're supporting it, which is a dangerous practice. I've seen this by a lot of big names out there. And I guarantee you they don't have a team dedicated to updating this other like tool library, whatever it is that is there. They might have someone who will, if a known CVE gets posted for a critical vulnerability in it, they might go in and manually patch it themselves and do an update to it. But that doesn't mean they actually have, like, here's the thing. If someone finds a flaw in this thing now, are they going to report it to said, you know, main company that's using it as a dependency? No, because the list isn't there. They don't even know who's using it. So what's the chances that that company even finds out that there's a critical vulnerability there to be patched, you know? So saying that they're supporting some other third party's thing that is out of date is well and good, I guess, to an extent, but it's still a concern, a major concern. Yeah. And we're going to see things like that. It's dangerous, and it's a strange liability someone would want to take on. Whenever I see someone make that claim that we're doing that, you're like, man, that's fun.
Yeah, did you talk to your lawyers before you sent that back? Because I don't think you did.
Yeah. But I mean, big names, I've seen several of them when working with clients, when we say, hey, this is out of date, and they're like, no, blah 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 says that they're maintaining it, and you're like, okay. I hope they are.
I've seen that before as well. Hey, speaking of Cisco, there's the whole gang of Cisco OS XE vulnerabilities as well. These vulnerabilities were actually released a couple of months ago, and I don't know if we talked about them or not, but they were two specific vulnerabilities that are being used in tandem. One is a CVSS score of 10. That's a privilege escalation vulnerability. The other is 7.2, and it's used for command injection. So essentially, there's a nonprofit organization known as the Shadow Server that's been monitoring these devices for indicators of compromise, and they've seen a large spike in compromised devices in the last few weeks here. I think they found like 23,000 confirmed devices that have the malicious implant and backdoor. And so what threat actors are doing is they're using the first critical CVE to gain access, create fake accounts, using those fake accounts to then exploit the second CVE to escalate privileges and inject code to essentially backdoor these Cisco devices, right? And so just so everybody knows too, the Cisco OS XE runs on a lot of stuff like catalyst switches, ASR routers, edge routers, industrial switches. I would be checking with Cisco right now if you have a device to see if you are running OS XE and if you are vulnerable to that. Because there is, I think the total number of devices worldwide, I have it in my notes maybe somewhere, but it's a lot, like 80 to 100,000 devices right now. So there's a ton of these out there. And we all know, I mean, coming from, you know, a network admin history as well, and Pinky's been there, like updating Cisco devices is challenging for some people. Network admins especially you got to deal with the outages, right? If you don't have a truly redundant network in place, and B, the risk of those updates. We've seen these updates cause massive disruptions, and so people like to take their time to get these vulnerabilities updated. And in this case, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, you just gave me a flashback to breaking stuff years ago. Like, you know, it's awful. Yeah, it is tough to update them, but I don't know. Let me talk to you here. Just a little personal conversation. It's just you and I, just me and you, listener.
Yeah.
Like, can can we stop putting network gear admin portals on the internet? You think we could? Like,
Yes.
I'm not saying we have to broadcast this to the whole world, but just me and you, the listener, right now. Let's maybe just try that, okay?
Yeah.
Like, this
Great
kills
call
me.
out, because you have to have the web UI on the internet for this to be exploited.
Yeah.
Stop.
Just stop it. Get help,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, just please stop putting those out there. And like, what scares me is, so you're saying, 80 to 100,000 out there. The article we used for this, there were 50,000 infected switches. I don't mean 50,000 vulnerable. There were 50,000 that had been hit already.
Yeah, that's right.
At the start of this. And there's still 23,000 that are actually infected with the malicious implant right now.
Yeah. Another 40,000 out there still vulnerable. So 90,000 total.
Yeah.
Well, and there's an important thing to note here too. Shadow Server works off of getting their data from sinkholing. Sinkholing is when the C2 server, the malicious server that these devices are calling out to, gets taken over and gets put in the hands of some good guys. And then they start to see all the things that are reaching out to it. And so that's how they can tell how many infections are out there.
Yeah.
Is because they have 23,000 hosts reaching out to these servers that have been taken over by the good guys. How many have not been?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you know how infrequently that actually happens, that they're able to take over a server? The good guys are able to take over a server. It's rare. It blows my mind every time we see it happen. Like, I'm like, holy crap, that's great. I'm glad you did that. But it is not like this is happening constantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a ton still out there that's probably an issue.
Yeah. So if you have a device, threat hunt immediately, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have the web UI on the internet. More importantly, like Pinky said, take the damn web UI off the internet. Don't allow public access to that. And if I can back up a little bit to here, Atlassian as well. Like, why does your Atlassian internal Atlassian implementation need to be publicly available? It doesn't. Take it off the internet as well. You don't have to worry about this stuff.
Hey, don't give me that we have a sister company that needs to use it.
Yeah.
Do a VPN. Just do a side-to-side VPN. Don't give me that excuse. That's not valid anymore. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop attacking our listeners, man. Calm down. It's gonna be okay.
It's
been a rough month, Eric.
I know.
It's been a rough couple of months. My guys.
Pinky, how many cases have you guys triaged in the last 2 months?
I literally have lost count. I do know that at one point we were looking at somewhere between like 25 and 30 in about 2 weeks. And for some perspective on that, like a week with 5 is kind of a big week. That's a lot of people, right? Because we're a small company, right? We're not getting hit all the time, or we're not getting hit up all the time. We were at like 30. Like I said, when I hopped on this, I think my guys were actively doing 3 triages right now. And it's just been pretty much nonstop since a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. So yeah, I'm begging you, please. We would all like to see our families for Christmas. Just please take these admin portals down now.
So when we tell you it's Breachmas, we're not exaggerating. And that leads me to my special surprise. So I would like everybody now, if you could, to cozy up by the fireplace, maybe get a nice cup of hot cocoa.
Turn the lights down a little bit.
Warm apple cider, maybe some adult eggnog, and get your comfies on. Let's get ready for, as we're going to just wind down, and I'm going to do a reading for everybody of the night before Breachmas. Is that okay?
Please.
All right.
It's not only okay, it's encouraged.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, here we go. 'Twas the night before Breachmas, when all through the enterprise not an admin was stirring, no one would be wise. The updates had been applied to all the servers with care, in hopes that the threat actor wouldn't be there. The technicians were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of no emergency support requests danced in their heads. And all the executives enjoyed an evening nightcap, and they just settled in for a long winter's nap. When out of nowhere my phone made such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the desk, I fled and I slid. I turned on the lights and I opened my laptop lid. I was in such a hurry that I'd stubbed my toe, but I opened my email because I needed to know. When what to my wondering eyes did appear, alerts for all my servers, and I struck with fear. They all appeared so suddenly and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Lockbit. More rapid than eagles, the encryptors they came. The CPUs, they whistled, screamed, and almost caught flame. My servers, my disks, and all my VMs. Oh no, this is bad, but maybe we can restore them. I log into Veeam and access the backup vault. Let's restore, restore, restore to them all. As the leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, I was met with an obstacle, and I didn't know why. As we went through our library, our cursors they flew, with a vault full of backups that were encrypted too. And then, in a twinkling, I noticed on screen a new text file, a note written for me. I scrambled to open it and give it a read, and these threat actors were very, very bad indeed. They encrypted all our data and gained full root. They made out the back door with all of our loot. A bundle of data they exfiltrated out the back. These guys were evil, a full ransack. The ransom note was not nice and not very merry. They wanted all of our money, topped with a cherry. They warned that the press and the commissions soon would know the deed was done and they had the proof to show. The trade secrets and PI was held tight in their teeth, and the DDoS bots circled like a wreath. They, they had a broad reach and their attacks were deadly. They found our weaknesses and targeted directly. It was a chubby and plump, a right jolly old port, RDP to the internet to help with support. And the blink of an eye, they'd harvested our creds, soon gave me to know I had everything to dread. I spoke not a word, but headed straight into work and disconnected the network cable with a forceful jerk. I reviewed the configs and more problems arose. We worked through the night, but I began to doze. I sprang awake when Microsoft Teams gave me a whistle, a message from our threat actor requesting fund transmittal. And I heard him explain, don't put up a fight. Happy Breachmas to all, and to all a good night.
Oh man,
Wow.
that was good. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
just yeah.
That was markedly better than I expected, and I didn't expect it to be bad at all. But that was fantastic.
Yeah, there's some rhyming in there that I'm just thoroughly impressed with.
Yeah.
You know, good job.
Yeah, I'm a songwriter, you know.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I had to
That is
dust
true.
off the old
Got
notebook
some
and
bars, man.
yeah, get the
Yeah.
pen and pad out and go back to work in the lab, you know, just like Eminem.
I am kind of with Bryce on this one and want to know how many work hours were spent making that, though.
It's not important. It's not important.
Actually, believe it or not, like I'd bang that out in like less than an hour.
Yeah, I didn't want to share, but he's actually right because he sent me the first little bit of it, and then he was just rolling with it to the point that I started to question if he was Chat GPT in it. But I know better, so I know that he didn't.
Yeah.
But no, really good, man.
Most people on here don't know, but I am a songwriter too. I enjoy writing songs, and like all of my favorite songs I've written, literally I write in 20 or 30 minutes. Like they just come out, you know. And so I just had an idea and rolled with it, and I'm super happy I got to share that with everybody today, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and doesn't experience Breachmas.
Yeah, please don't.
I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm with Shane. We need to post that on the website with Drunkaroo's recipe.
I don't know how I feel about encouraging boozing, but all right. I mean, you know,
we'll call them something else, you know. We'll
yeah. Great job, dude. Great job. Killer story, and also very real. That was all very, very real and very scary. So it's it's a little bit of a holdover from. I mean, you know, there are Christmas, you know, scary ghost stories and that kind of thing, right? There's a song about that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
so good job.
Yeah, I don't know. Right. Everybody have happy, you know, winter. Whatever you would celebrate or don't celebrate, have a happy one. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy holidays, happy winter, happy times with your family. Yeah, it's been a great year, guys. I'm thankful for you dudes, and we get a chance to do this and hang out and talk nerd stuff and security, and then maybe sometimes do silly stories at least once a month. And I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season.
Same, man. Same.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next year. Adios.
Bye, everybody.